Your Omaha High is being sponsored by Best Buy Signs, creator of the Omaha Parks program, OmahaFastFoods.com, Kohl's Pharmacy and Home Care, Certified Transmission, Centris Federal Credit Union, Shold-It, Rotella's Italian Bakery, La Peeps Restaurant, Performance Auto Group, Two Men and a Truck, Crane Landscape Construction, Shout Weekly, Mid-America Speakers Bureau, Farm Bureau Financial Services, Critter Control. Welcome to Your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg, the show that will leave you feeling great about yourself, Omaha's heroes, and Omaha, where we live, work, and play. So park yourself on the bench and have fun. Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of Your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg, the show that you turn into every Saturday morning to feel good about yourself, to feel good about Omaha, and to feel good about an individual who's done some tremendous things, both for themselves and for the city, and for people who rely upon him. And we are so fortunate today to have an individual who has an extremely compelling story that not only is going to move you, it's going to influence you, and it's going to make you a better person. In a few moments, you're going to learn from Dr. David Watts what he went through. He went through, as a child, being bullied in high school rather severely, and then turned out to be a very, very prominent physician here in Omaha, Nebraska. He's a renowned skin cancer surgeon, and he won the Physician of the Year from the Nebraska Medical Association. And as important, he is an advocate for reduced tanning and indoor tanning for teenage girls. Dr. David Watts, I look so much forward to chatting with you later and learning exactly what you went through in life so everybody can learn from it.
Thanks, Andy.
And as you know, when you turn into the show, there are basically three things that we do. You learn from 4 motivational vignettes. You also get the opportunity to learn from a nonprofit organization who's done tremendous things from Omaha, and of course, Dr. David Watts. So what do you say we get started, and we start to talk about a bicycle. Now here's what I want you to picture. I want you to picture going into your garage, and there it is, the bicycle. It is just sitting there. And you say to yourself, geez, I know this bicycle can do more. As a matter of fact, I know I can do something with this bicycle because either I enjoy riding or I did enjoy riding. So what are you going to do to make that particular bicycle extremely productive? It's very simple. All you have to do is get on the bicycle. But you know what? It's not going to move until you do what? You put your feet on the pedals and you begin to pedal the bicycle. Now, once you do that, I want you to ask yourself this question. Are you going fast or are you going slow? And do you know what the destination is? Because one of the keys of riding a bicycle is you've got to provide the power, you've got to provide the velocity, and yeah, you've got to provide the sweat, and of course, the destination. And when you really think about it, you've taken an object, added something to it, the fuel, if I may, which is human energy, and then you went ahead and went someplace. You know what? Life is the same way. Inside of each and every one of us is a bicycle. There's a skill, there's a talent, there's a drive, there's a destination. It's probably dormant. You probably haven't done anything with it for a while. And you probably say to yourself, when am I going to do something? The lesson I'd like you to remember is all you have to do is take that skill, take that talent, no longer make it dormant by having the energy, by pedaling, by providing the power, by saying to yourself, you know what? I'm going to take that thing off the shelf and I'm going to make it part of my psyche. And when I go out there in the world and I'm writing this new skill, I'm writing this new talent, I am going to smile because there's only one thing, just one, that makes that bicycle run and work. That's you. There's only one thing that drives you. There's only one thing that takes your skills and talents to a higher level even faster. Nobody else but the power that you put into it. So I want you to consider your life a bicycle and take full advantage of the ride that it provides for you. And let's begin to also talk about something people all the time on sports. You ever hear the expression, never in my wildest dreams did I expect this to happen. Never in my wildest dreams. I'm so thrilled that it happened. I hate that expression because quite frankly, if you're not dreaming about it, It is not going to happen. Because once you have a dream, it's your responsibility to turn it into a goal. And by the way, who sets the limits on the dreams that you have? Is it anybody else? No. Is it an outside influence? No. It is you. You are entitled to your wildest dreams. You are entitled to have your imagination continue to expand. You are entitled never to say, in my wildest dreams, I never thought this would happen to me. There's no reason for you to say that. What you should be saying is, you know what? I knew it would happen. It was part of my dreams. It was part of my goals. It was part of my aspirations. I achieved it because I dreamt it. And once I dreamt it, I had those goals. So one of the things that you want to remember is never again say to yourself, in my wildest dreams, I never thought this would happen. What I want you to do is I want you to make a list of 5 things that are your wildest dreams. And I want you to expand them. There's no limits to what you can do. Then go ahead and provide a timetable, action steps, and make it happen for you. You know what? Have a wild time doing it. Now, you know, sometimes when you begin to boil water for tea, have you ever asked yourself, how long does it take for a pot of water to boil? And there's an interesting answer to that. Is a lot of variety that goes into it. Now, for example, how high or low do you set the flame? How much water do you actually put into the pot? Very, very important questions, because as much power as you put into it, the faster that water will boil. You control it through the fire. And again, it's how much you want to boil. If you want to boil more and you want to make it go quicker, you, of course, light more fire. Now, does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar with an expression called fire in the belly? By the way, not anybody else's belly, your belly. Because as much as energy as you want to get, as much enthusiasm as you want to get, it all depends upon the amount of flame that you ignite in your particular belly. It's that fire in the belly. It's that feeling, that tightness, that warmth, that you say to yourself, yep, I'm ready. I'm going to take what I want to do in life. I'm going to set that fire up just like I do the boiling water for tea, but I don't have time to wait around because as much energy as I put into it, that is as much as you're going to get out of it. So the next time you boil water, I want you to think about how much fire you're putting into your belly, at the same time allowing you to enjoy everything that's going to happen in your life. And of course, how many of us participate in something called the rat race? You know what? We all do. And there are times that we come home from work or we go to work and we say to ourselves, yeah, know what? This rat race is absolutely horrible. This rat race is not for me. And by the way, the expression where the rat race came from, yep, it's the rat that is in the cages at home. And you know what? They have these spinning wheels. And when they have these spinning wheels, they go round and round. But I got to tell you something. I love the rat race because I look at it from a different point of view. The fact of the matter is, I'm in a race. I'm in a race to get to my goals. I'm in a race to get to my levels of achievements faster than anyone else. And when I do that, you betcha, I'm going to run fast. When they say on your mark, get set, go, I'm in that full sprint. I'm not looking around what my competitors are doing. I don't care as long as they're behind me. It's the only thing I worry about. So the rat race is good. It's good for you. It's good for your energy. It's good for your goals. The faster you get there, you're the first one. Let's review the bicycle, the wildest dreams, the boiling of the tea, and the rat race will have you feeling good about yourself, about your future, and about what you will and can accomplish. And it's during this time of the show that we always profile a nonprofit organization in the Omaha area. And this week, it's going to be the Women's Fund of Omaha. Listen very carefully. For nearly 25 years, the nonprofit Women's Fund of Omaha has been the voice of Omaha's women and girls as it leads positive change, tackles the tough issues, and makes a difference in our community. As a trusted expert, the Women's Fund identifies critical issues, funds in innovative solutions, and influences dynamic change. Women's Fund research paints a picture of how women and girls are doing in Omaha. Studies address topics like domestic violence, economic self-sufficiency, leadership, and sexual literacy. The Women's Fund then provides grants to local nonprofits for programs addressing the greatest needs. $1.8 million so far to more than 100 organizations. And the Women's Fund has established its own programs, like the Ready to Run candidate workshops that encourage women to run for elected office, and the young professionals group Women's Fund Circles. Find out more about how Women's Fund of Omaha is leading the conversation about the importance of investing in women and girls and how you can get involved. Visit www.omahawomensfund.org. Find them on Facebook under Women's Fund, or simply call 402-827-9280. That's the Women's Fund of Omaha. And now we get the opportunity to have a great conversation with Dr. David Watts. As I mentioned earlier, he's an esteemed skin cancer surgeon here in the Omaha area. He has won the Physician of the Year from the Nebraska Medical Association, and as important, is an extreme advocate for the limited use of indoor tanning by teenage girls. Now, all of that sounds very impressive, and you might be saying to yourself, well, he comes from a great background and he just continued. But you're going to find out differently, because as a child, Dr. David Watts was bullied. He overcame that and became prominent, and we're going to learn that story. Dr. Watts, welcome so much to your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg.
Thanks for having me.
And let's get started, because your story is compelling. It is going to influence people and show them how to overcome adversity in their life.
Great.
And I got to go back to the times that you were bullied. So take me back to the time when it started. How did it make you feel, and what was being done to you?
Well, first of all, I wish I would have had your TV showed.
Thank you.
But it really started for me when I went into the 9th grade, into high school, and I was the youngest kid because I skipped a grade in grade school.
Okay.
And so I was also the smallest kid and probably the shyest kid, so very introverted and probably an easy target.
And so as an easy target, what were some of the things that were being done to you because you were bullied? What did they do?
You hear about physical violence, but it wasn't anything like that. It was more being laughed at and fingers pointing. And I remember we had reserved seating in our school class, and I sat up front, and I would get pelted with a spit wad. We did spit wads in those days, and then titters and laugh and watch this, and oh goodness, it was pretty bad. I remember one other time I was trying to learn how to throw a discus, and someone was filming me. And at the end of the school year, I was mortified to have this film show up of me trying to throw the discus. And it was hilarious for the student body, not so much for me.
And that was before YouTube. So it's a good thing YouTube was not available in those days for them to post it.
Oh my gosh, what kids go through.
That would have been devastating. And a lot of kids, unfortunately, go through that today, where things are done and they're put on YouTube. So was that 9th grade, 10th grade, did it continue through high school?
Pretty much the first couple of years of high school was the worst. And there was one particular ringleader, and other people would egg him on, and he would egg them on, and it was quite a game. But yeah, it went for a couple of years.
And Dr. Watts, was there anybody that could help you? Anybody in the school, your parents, friends? I mean, this is something, as a victim, you shouldn't have to be alone. Nobody had any support to give you?
Gosh, I wish there would have been. I was too embarrassed. I was too embarrassed to ask my folks or my teachers. I didn't want to be a tattletale, and I really didn't have any special friends to discuss it with. So I was pretty isolated.
And that had to take an unbelievable emotional toll on your psyche, on your friendship, on your social activities, and I'm going to assume on your educational activities.
Well, I was a pretty shy kid anyway, so it probably didn't help bring me out of my shell, honestly. So it was kind of tough in terms of meeting girls in particular.
Sure,
I was terrified of women.
I know, it's hard to recollect.
But as far as educationally, it may have, in retrospect, been a good thing, because I took refuge in reading books. And so I read a lot of books. And in retrospect, that served me well in years to come.
Did it ever stop you from going to school knowing that you would be each day the subject of bullying?
I would have loved to not go to school if there would have been an alternative.
Sure. And there's a lesson for each and every one of us. Here is an individual, shy, introverted, little social activity, already had what I would consider an inferiority complex, and knew going to school every day would be traumatic. Now here's a question. How many of us would have quit? How many of us actually quit today when things go bad for us, when there are obstacles that are placed in front of us where all of a sudden we become victims? It could be something in business, it could be something in social. And one of the reasons I have Dr. Watts on the show is so that each and every one of us can learn how to grow from these experiences, because we'll learn in a minute how he did and what he did to overcome these particular problems that actually had negative impacts on his life as a kid. So let's go through it. You graduated high school.
Right.
And then when did you decide to get into the medical profession? And did bullying have any influence on that?
Well, I knew that I really wanted to connect with people. That was a given. So what I chose to do was in that direction. And what I ended up doing was enlisting in the Navy Hospital Corps.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I went into the Navy. I went into Corps School. I actually studied Taekwondo. I started to develop a little bit of self-confidence. And I found a friend who I could talk to. That was the thing.
And that is very important. That says that when you have these problems and you have these issues, and by the way, we all do, that it is important to find a friend. Now, I'm going to share something with you that you probably didn't know about me. When I was a kid, I had a stuttering problem, which I think I might have mentioned on another show. I was also really burdened with an inferiority complex, and I had little friends. Now, today I'm a talk show host and on the radio, so one might say, geez, how did you make that transition? Well, I had a friend. I had a friend that I met when I was 15 years old. By the way, that friend is now my wife. So we went ahead and together grew in life. So let's go back. You found a friend. This particular person gave you support, and all of a sudden you started to gain that self-esteem. You started to gain that self-confidence. And I think in the back of your mind what probably happened is you knew people might be victims of some medical maladies that they absolutely didn't plan in their life. And you probably said to yourself, you know what, I'm going to help them.
As a Navy corpsman, I worked in a minor illness clinic with Marines, and I found out that I was really good at it. And I got some encouragement again from some of the doctors that I worked with, and decided that this was something that I could do. And having gained a little bit of self-confidence, I decided I would go ahead and take the steps to, once I got out and served my time in the service, to go to college, to go to medical school, to get into residency and fellowship, and so on and so forth.
So basically, you never gave up.
That's right.
How many of us can actually say, I never gave up? I bet there's a lot, because that's why you're as successful as you are today. So let's get back to it. You now have your practice, and all of a sudden, because of the wonderful things that you do for patients, you became known as the Physician of the Year for the Nebraska Medical Association. How did that feel? Was that a bit of revenge internally? How did that feel?
I don't know about revenge. It's nice to have the work that I'm doing validated, particularly the work on tanning.
Yes, and we're going to be talking about it in just a few moments, because that is something that's extremely important. But I want to go back for a moment.
Sure.
If that ringleader, that bully that got you started in 9th grade was in the studio right now, or you found this person on Facebook, or the person found you, and you had an opportunity to talk to that person, what would you say?
Gee, that's a tough one, really. I imagine I would. That's tough.
If you prefer not answering, I'd certainly understand that.
No, I would probably say something like, I hope you feel okay about yourself now, and I hope you've learned that you don't have to be mean to somebody else or hurt somebody else in order to feel better about yourself. So, good for you.
That's a great answer. How many of us would have replied differently? How many of us would have said, "You SOB, man, I hope you live a lousy life for what you did for me for 4 years. You practically destroyed me." And you know what? We just learned a valuable lesson. Dr. David Watts did not say that. Dr. David Watts basically said, hey, the past is the past. I live in the future now, and I live in the present. And now I'm helping people out. Now, one of the things that you do is you're an advocate for reduced tanning in indoor tanning for teenage girls.
Right.
And you began to take a look at some relationships as to why they actually go to these indoor tanning salons. What are some of the things you discovered?
Well, the public health science tells us that, surveys tell us that young girls who tan do so because they think their friends are tanning, or they think their friends want to be tan, or their parents tan or want to be tan, or give them permission to tan. So fitting into a peer group for young people is very important. The problem is that sometimes they have to squeeze a square peg into a round hole, and to do so, and that really doesn't work out well when you have to change yourself to please somebody else. In the long run, it just doesn't work.
So what you're basically describing is peer pressure.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that they might be concerned with is peer pressure. If they don't respond to the peer pressure, then they might be bullied.
And we see that girls are coerced by their peer group. I know of a volleyball team. All of the girls except one tanned, and she was not going to tan, and they harassed her, and she said, no, I'm not going to do it.
That is fortitude.
You bet.
That is really, but they still kept her as part of the team.
Right.
Which is the important thing. So from a medical point of view, I understand the social part of it, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But so what's wrong medically if somebody goes into an indoor tanning booth for a casual tan?
Right.
What's the, I see it on the news, what's the big deal?
The problem is that the UV, the ultraviolet radiation in indoor tanning, is much stronger than the outdoor radiation. And you can't feel it, or you can't see it, because it's not heat, it's not visible light, it's invisible, so your senses can't tell you how much you're getting, and they get overdosed. 1 out of 5 girls who goes into an indoor tanning booth gets a burn.
1 out of 5 get a burn?
1 out of 5 sessions result in a burn.
1 out of 5 sessions?
Absolutely.
Never realized that. I don't know if you ever knew that factor, but I want to go back to something also, and that has to do with the whole issue of peer pressure. Because you know what? I'm going to tell you something. Peer pressure is good if you've got the right peers surrounding you. And I've got to go back to the story that Dr. Watts told us earlier. In his high school years, well, he didn't have the right peer group. On the other hand, when he went into the Navy, he found some friends. He found some other doctors that encouraged him. And all of a sudden, what built his sense of self-confidence and self-esteem was the fact that he was able to get the right peer group pressure. So what advice would you give to parents? What advice would you give to the friends of these girls who want to go in and are compelled to go in to these indoor tanning salons? What's some of the guidance you would give them?
I'm no expert on bullying or peer pressure or any of those things. There's a lot of great resources online and books and so on. But for me, helping me to look into my feelings, to find out what was going on, and to find healthy role models, like Taylor Swift, for example.
Sure.
Very strong, remarkable young woman who happens to have great-looking, fair skin.
Yes.
And also is a tremendous proponent of following your own beat.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And those are the type of role models that they should be following.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the things we always want to ask ourselves is, both as adults and as parents and as friends, what type of peer pressure do we give to people? And as individuals, what type of peer pressure do we look for? Because remember, if people lead each and every one of us into a negative direction, I didn't say wrong direction, a negative direction, you know what's going to happen? Yeah, you know, we're going to turn out to be negative people. On the other hand, when you find, when you create, when you become an individual who provides positive peer pressures to others, you know what? You actually gain from that. You actually learn from that. And one of the things that I love doing is to be part of a peer pressure group. And what kind of a peer pressure group? A positive peer pressure group. Because there is nothing better than anyone coming to you or me and saying, hey, thanks, you moved me. You changed my life for the better. It's something I appreciate. It's something I will always remain high on, and it's something that I will absolutely always remember you because of. So your story is absolutely wonderful. It's an individual who as a kid was shy for all the reasons that we certainly understand, and then grew out of it, and then became an esteemed surgeon, as mentioned before, and a wonderfully recognized doctor. As you go through that again, what's one of the best memories that you have of everything that you've done?
Oh, gee. You know, it really comes out every time someone says, "Doc,
Yeah.
thanks so much.
Sure.
You really treated me right, and you understood." That's what.
Yes, and if there was something in this interview that we just went through that you would like everybody to take away and remember, what would that one thing be, or two things?
Yeah, I'd love to have everybody feel that you can really respect yourself. It's good to help other people, and it's good to do something fulfilling.
And I love that word, respect yourself. How many of us look in the mirror every day and in return you say, you know what, I respect that person that's looking back at me. By the way, the person looking back at you, that's your image. And that's the one that you should respect. And I don't think Dr. Watts could have summarized the time we spent together any better than using that one word, total respect. And I also have a hunch that if someone respects themselves, they will not succumb to negative peer pressure. And if they respect themselves, they'll probably go out to find and create positive peer pressure.
And other people will respect them.
And other people will absolutely respect that. And that's where it becomes so important for each one of us to remember. So the next time that you're looking at your image, the one thing you want to remember, it's okay to get a tan. I think we can agree on that. You've got to be controlled. But there's only one reason why you want to get that tan, for yourself, not to show off to other people. And you've got to use caution. And I think these days it's a 50 SPS, is that what it's called?
Well, Andy, I wish I could agree with you that.
Okay, I noticed that
a tan is
and I was
safe.
hoping to get that out of you.
But any tan, unfortunately, is a sign of damaged skin.
Right.
So if you have to get some color, do a tan out of a bottle. Do a self-tanner.
Yeah, self-tanner. Yeah, out in the sun.
No.
Oh, so
out of a bottle.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
Did not know that. Very, very important. So let's review a little bit what we talked about this week on your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg. First, tremendous thank you so much for being here. We talked about the bicycle. We talked about your wildest dreams. We talked about boiling tea and rat race. We'll see you next week on your Omaha High with Andy Greenberg as you meet another great individual that's done great stuff for you. Stay high. Your Omaha High was sponsored by Best Buy Signs, creator of the Omaha Parks Program, OmahaFastFoods.com, Kohl's Pharmacy and Home Care, Certified Transmission, Centris Federal Credit Union, Shold-It, Rotella's Italian Bakery, La Peeps Restaurant, Performance Auto Group, Two Men and a Truck, Crane Landscape Construction, Shout Weekly, Mid-America Speakers Bureau, Farm Bureau Financial Services, Critter Control,